I will never forget the moment I saw her, standing there in the middle of the hall, smiling, glowing, wearing my dream dress. It felt like my chest caved in, the kind of punch you don't see coming, but one that knocks the air straight out of your lungs. Everyone's eyes followed her as she walked, her chin high, her lips curved into that smug little smirk she always wore when she thought she had won. And in that moment, she had. Because she was wearing the one thing I had saved for, prayed for, dreamt about. The one dress that was supposed to be mine. I had imagined slipping into it on my special day, feeling unstoppable, untouchable, like all the years of being overlooked and underestimated would finally fade away. But instead, there she was, my cousin, prancing in the spotlight in something she had no right to touch. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip it right off her and shout to the crowd, "That's mine! She stole it!" But I couldn't, because in that frozen moment, I wasn't just the girl without her dress. I was the girl everyone pitied. The one standing in the shadows, watching someone else live her dream. My fingers curled so tight around my glass that I thought it might shatter. The laughter, the whispers, the music, it all blurred together into one mocking roar in my head. And when she spun, letting the dress catch the light, I swear I saw her glance at me. A glance sharp enough to cut skin. That was no accident. She wanted me to see. She wanted me to hurt. And she succeeded. Because as I stood there, staring at my cousin flaunting the dress that was supposed to be mine, one question tore through me, louder than all the noise in that room. How did she get it? I had guarded that secret like it was my last treasure. No one knew I had been saving every cent for it. No one knew I had whispered its name like a prayer at night. No one, except her. The betrayal tasted bitter, like poison on my tongue, and yet I swallowed it, standing still, trying to breathe through the humiliation. But deep inside, something cracked open. Something sharp. Something dangerous. Because if she thought she had won, if she thought she could humiliate me and walk away smiling, she had no idea what storm she had just unleashed. And that storm was me. But before I tell you how karma caught up with her, you need to understand how I ended up in this nightmare in the first place. The dress wasn't just fabric to me. It wasn't just silk, lace, or sparkle. It was my escape, my proof, my moment. For years, I had been the invisible one. The girl shoved to the side at family dinners, always overshadowed by louder voices, bigger personalities, prettier smiles. My cousin especially thrived in that spotlight. She didn't just bask in attention, she demanded it. And she always got at me. I learned to swallow the envy, to smile when I wanted to cry, to clap for her while she clapped for herself, but deep inside, I made a promise. That one day I'd have my moment. One day they wouldn't look past me. They'd look at me. And that dress, that dream dress, was going to help me claim it. I had worked for months, quietly saving. Skipping coffee runs, turning down nights out, working extra shifts. Nobody knew, not even my best friend. The dress was my secret sanctuary. Just imagining myself in it carried me through the hardest days. But now, standing there, watching my cousin twirl in it, all that sacrifice felt like ashes. How could she have known? How could she have gotten her hands on it before me? The memory of the last time we talked played in my head. She had leaned in, her smile too sweet, her words dripping with curiosity. "So, what are you saving up for? You've been acting strange lately." I hadn't told her directly. I had been careful, but maybe she had caught a slip. A glance at my phone. A whisper to myself, or maybe she had found my sketchbook. That sketchbook was my heart on paper. The dress circled, underlined, adored. Did she sneak into my room? Did she flip through my things? The thought made my skin crawl. She had always been competitive. But this was war. And she didn't just want to win. She wanted to crush me in the process, because that's who she was. My cousin, my enemy disguised as family, and I had been too blind to see it until it was too late. But here's the thing about betrayal. It wakes you up. It lights a fire in your chest that no one can put out. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Not this time. Because the moment she stole my dream dress, she didn't just take fabric. She tore something deeper. She tried to take me, and I wasn't about to let her succeed. What she didn't know was that while she thought she had stolen the spotlight, I had already started planning how to steal it back. The music was loud, the laughter even louder. But inside me, it was all silence. A silence that pressed heavy, sharp, unbearable. I stood frozen, clutching my glass so tight I thought my fingers might bleed. My cousin floated across the floor, her laughter slicing through the room like a knife. Every head turned to her, every smile bent in her direction, and I knew what they were all thinking. She looks stunning. That dress is perfect on her. She owns the room. They didn't know. They couldn't. To them, it was just another beautiful dress on a beautiful girl. But to me, it was everything. I watched her spin, watched the fabric catch the light exactly how I had dreamed it would for me. My stomach twisted. My throat burned. She walked closer, weaving through the crowd with that smug tilt to her head. And then she did it. She stopped right in front of me. "Do you like it?" she asked, her voice syrupy sweet, her eyes glinting with poison. I swallowed hard. My chest was screaming, but I forced my lips to twitch into something that might pass as a smile. "It's nice," I muttered, barely holding myself together. Her smirk widened. She leaned closer, whispering words only I could hear. "Too bad you'll never wear it." My blood went cold. My nails dug into my palms. She knew. She knew. And she wanted me to know that she knew. I forced myself to stay calm, but my heart was galloping. Everyone around us clapped, cheered, celebrated her like she was some kind of queen. And me? I was the shadow at her feet, the nobody in her reflection. But that whisper. It flipped something inside me. It wasn't just about the dress anymore. It was about her need to see me broken. To see me small. Not this time. I forced a sip from my glass, the bitter liquid burning my throat. I locked eyes with her and whispered back, low enough for only her to hear. "Enjoy it while it lasts." Her smirk faltered for just a split second. Barely noticeable. But I saw it, and that tiny crack in her confidence lit something dangerous in me, because I realized something in that moment. She might have stolen my dress, but she hadn't stolen my fire. And fire, when pushed too far, burns everything in its path. What she didn't realize was that her little game had just awakened a side of me she had never seen before, and I was about to play it better than her. I didn't sleep that night. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over. "Too bad you'll never wear it. It wasn't just the dress." No, it was never just about the dress. See, growing up, my cousin and I were constantly compared. She was the golden girl, the one who seemed to shine without even trying. She had the smile, the charm, the looks that turned heads. And me? I was the shadow she left behind. The almost pretty, the almost enough. Always second place in a race I never even signed up for. But that dress, it wasn't just fabric to me. It was my dream stitched into silk. The first time I saw it in the store window, I felt something shift. Like maybe, just maybe, I could step out of her shadow for once. I saved for months, skipped coffees, worked extra shifts, said no to nights out. Every coin, every dollar. I tucked it away, thinking about that moment when I'd finally put it on and feel like the star for once in my life. And she knew that. She knew exactly what that dress meant to me. So when she took it, it wasn't about looking good. It was about crushing me. About proving that no matter how hard I tried, she'd always snatch the spotlight first. The next morning, she strutted around the house like nothing had happened, humming, smiling, acting sweet in front of the family. But every now and then her eyes flicked to me, like she was daring me to react. I didn't. Not yet. I played along. I smiled when she cracked her fake jokes. I nodded when she pretended to include me in conversations. To everyone else, we were just cousins getting along. But inside I was making promises to myself. Because what she didn't understand is that when you corner someone quiet for too long, Eventually, they stop being prey. Eventually, they start sharpening their claws. And mine? Mine were already cutting. So I let her laugh. I let her gloat. But what she didn't know was that I had already started plotting. And the first chance I got, I was going to flip the script on her. I kept pretending to be okay. I smiled. I nodded. I laughed at her jokes that weren't funny. I clapped when she wanted applause. But inside, something had frayed and finally snapped. There's a moment in everyone's life when being small stops being an option. For me, that night was it. The dress was the final straw, but what pushed me over the edge was the way everyone looked at her afterward, like they had always seen me as background noise, like my dreams had always been a rehearsal for someone else's opening night. I remember standing in the bathroom later that night. The house quiet, the hum of the refrigerator loud enough to drown a train. My reflection in the mirror looked thinner, more hollow. My hands shook so badly I couldn't even touch my face without wincing. I cupped cold water and splashed it over my cheeks, as if I could wash the humiliation off me. I tried to breathe. I tried to tell myself it wasn't worth it. But my chest felt like a fist kept squeezing tighter and tighter. "You're better than this," I told my reflection. My voice was small, but there was a tremor of something else underneath. Anger. Real anger. The kind that tastes metallic, that makes your palms sweat. It felt wrong and right all at once. That was the breaking point. The next morning I woke up and things had a different color. The sky was the same, the coffee the same, but my mind was irreversibly changed. I carried a small, simmering plan with me like a secret ember. I didn't shout it from the rooftops. I didn't post anything online. I tucked it inside and let it grow on its own. People think revenge is about shouting, about dramatic confrontations and immediate satisfaction. But the kind that lasts, the kind that actually stings, it's quiet. It's patient. It's deliberate. It's like planting seeds in winter and waiting for spring. I started small. I watched her patterns like a detective. How she walked, who she texted, where she liked to shop. I listened to how she spoke when she thought no one was listening. Little details that everyone else missed, I memorized. They were the kindling. I also started keeping track, calls, purchases, the nights she worked late, but showed up perfectly coiffed the next morning. I wrote down dates, snippets of conversations, times she left the house, who she met. My notebook filled with neat, tiny handwriting that made the plan real. The ink became my armor. At work, she was the one people complimented for effortless charm. At family gatherings, the golden girl who could do no wrong. But every hero has a predictable script, and predictable can be dismantled. I began to set small traps, innocent invitations, casual mentions of events I knew she couldn't resist, an offhand comment meant to make her reveal herself. I watched what she fell for, what gave her away. It felt strange, plotting against family. Guilty, even. But guilt is a funny thing. When it's been given to you for years because you dared to want more, it loses its sting. And so, with each small observation I made, my resolve hardened. Each note in my book was proof I was not imagining this. I was not being dramatic. This was happening. I also started to strengthen myself. I signed up for self-defense classes, not because I thought she would turn violent, but because I wanted the confidence that came with knowing I could stand up if I needed to. I took a class about public speaking, funny, right? The girl who had always stayed quiet now wanted a voice that couldn't be ignored. I worked harder at my job, not to prove her wrong alone, but to build a life that didn't require her approval. There were moments of doubt. Nights I would lie awake imagining how cruel it might seem, imagining their faces when the plan unfolded. Would they call me petty? Would they call me bitter? Maybe, but I couldn't go back to being invisible. Not after everything. And then came the moment that made the plan shift from thought to action, the revelation that she hadn't just stumbled on the dress by chance. There was evidence, something small, a receipt, an offhand comment from an aunt, a photo that didn't belong. It was the kind of thing that sits in plain sight until someone actually looks. That discovery didn't make me gloat. It made me coldly methodical. Now I knew This wasn't a mistake or coincidence. This was a choice, and choices had consequences. I began to set things in motion, not reckless, not vengeful in the cartoonish sense, but precise and inevitable. I tightened the stitches on my plan, polished its sharp edges, imagined the exact moment everything would click into place. I rehearsed how I would stand, what I would say, how I would hold my face so my fear couldn't be read. Everything felt dangerous in the most right way. I was no longer the person who let others define my worth. I was an author, drafting a story where I finally had control. And still, I kept the big reveal to myself. I let her keep wearing the dress. I let her enjoy the attention for now, because the best payback isn't immediate. It builds, it simmers. It arrives when they least expect it, when their guard is down and their arrogance is at its fullest. I had the pieces. I had the dates. I had the receipts. What I needed next was the right moment, and when it came, it would change everything. I kept my mouth shut. I smiled in photographs. I let her wear my dream under chandeliers and camera flashes, because the plan wasn't about acting fast. It was about acting right. You learn something when you've been pushed aside for years. Patience becomes a weapon. I sharpened mine until it cut clean. First, I turned ordinary moments into opportunities. Phone calls, small talk, a compliment here, a casual question there. I asked about dresses, about who helped her find it, about where she shopped. I listened for names, for places, for the tiniest slip of pride. People always talk when they feel admired. They always reveal themselves when they think they're winning. Then I used what I knew. I reached out to the aunt who ran the family group chats, the one who kept receipts and photos like trophies. I pretended to be curious about the event, asked which boutique had the guest dresses for the party. She answered, trusting me. She sent a picture of the dress on the boutique's page. The tag was visible in the corner. A brand, a style number, tiny clues but enough. I worked at night, hunched over glowing screens and scribbled notes. I traced purchases. I compared timestamps. I found a pattern. An online order placed on a day I remembered my cousin claiming to be broke. A message from a friend saying, "Can't believe you pulled off that dress." The friend had no idea she'd just slipped into my map. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Confrontation ruins theater. You don't expose the villain before the curtain falls. You let them bask. You let them think they're untouchable. I also built a quiet support system. Not loud, not dramatic. A few people who mattered. An old coworker who owed me a favor. A cousin who didn't love drama and preferred facts. A neighbor who kept an eye on comings and goings. I spoke in whispers. I asked for small help. Nothing that would look like plotting. Photographs casually saved. Messages archived. A timeline scribbled and re-scribbled until it looked like a map of inevitability. At the same time, I worked on me. The outside had to match the inside. If I wanted the payoff to be undeniable, I needed to be undeniable too. I hired a seamstress, not to mend old things, but to alter a dress I already had. A subtle makeover, a different silhouette, a cut that would catch the light in a way my cousins couldn't. No one needed to know. It was a private armor, tailored for the moment I would step out of the shadows. I practiced walking into rooms like I owned them. Not because I wanted to be arrogant, but because I wanted to be seen. I practiced saying my name out loud and believing it. I rehearsed the small things that make people remember a person. The way you stand, the way you laugh, the way you hold your head when someone insults you. Confidence is a language. I learned it with the intensity of someone writing a letter to the future. Then I set the traps with the care of someone placing chess pieces. I invited the family to a small, casual celebration, just a get-together, I said, on a day I knew she would be free. I hinted that I would be wearing something special. I made sure the neighbor would be there with a camera. I ensured the aunt who loved posting on social media would be in the living room with her phone at the ready. I didn't say why. I let curiosity do the work. The first test was tiny. I mentioned casually that I was thinking of donating a dress to a charity event next month. Her eyes narrowed. She asked innocently where I'd find such a thing on my budget. I shrugged and smiled. It was bait. She took it. She boasted. The aunt overheard and started offering names in stores. She wanted to help me. She wanted to show off for the cousin. She wanted to show she knew things first, and then, to my surprise, my cousin did something I didn't expect, she bragged. To a mutual friend, in a private message, she wrote about how she had absolutely scored the dress and how surprised everyone was. She didn't think about who she was telling. She didn't think about the cousin listening to the same group chat. I saved that message. I saved screenshots. Each little piece of proof slipped into my collection like beads on a string. The string was becoming a noose, but not yet. I wanted the knot to be public, undeniable. There were moments I felt guilty. Tiny twinges that made me second-guess whether I was burning a bridge or building a wall. But I remembered the nights of pretending to be okay. The silent prayers over spare coins. The way people looked through me. I swallowed the guilt and fed the plan, because there was an art to this. It wasn't spite for spite's sake. It was reclamation. It was me taking back a piece of myself she had stolen and showing the world that the one who had been dismissed wasn't broken. She was deliberate. And all the while, my cousin kept parading that dress. She kept posting photos. She kept thanking people for compliments. She thought the show would never end, but shows always do. Everything was ready. The invitations had been sent. The photos would be taken. The only thing left was the moment, and the moment was closer than she imagined. The night of the gathering arrived, and I'll admit it, I was nervous. Not the kind of nervous that makes you shake uncontrollably, but the kind that coils inside you like a spring, waiting to snap. I'd chosen my dress carefully. Not flashy, not loud, but powerful in its own way. A sleek fit, a shade that hugged the room's lights, and a neckline that whispered confidence instead of screaming desperation. When I slipped it on, I didn't just feel dressed, I felt armed. As guests trickled in, laughter filled the air. Glasses clinked, conversations hummed, and the house buzzed with the familiar chaos of family. On the surface, it was ordinary. But under that chatter, I felt like the air was vibrating with electricity. And then she arrived. My cousin walked in like a queen entering her palace, the dream dress clinging to her like she owned it. The silk shimmered, the sequins caught the light, and her smile stretched wide. Calculated, practiced. She thrived on eyes. She thrived on whispers. She wanted the room to stop for her, and for a moment it did. People gasped, complimented, took photos. She turned slowly, soaking it all in, like a chandelier made of glass and vanity. But what she didn't know, what no one knew, was that tonight the spotlight wouldn't stay on her for long. I didn't confront her. No, that would have been too easy, too predictable. Instead, I let her bask. I let her take the stage, let her collect her praises like roses at the end of a show. And all the while, I waited for the right cue. Then it happened. My aunt, the one who posted everything online, pulled out her phone. She wanted a group photo. "Stand together, girls," she chirped, ushering us into place. My cousin positioned herself in the center, clutching the frame of the picture like it was a throne. Click. Flash. Laughter. But I knew what would come next. Because photos don't just live in phones anymore, they live online. And my aunt couldn't resist sharing. Within minutes, the picture went up. The caption read, "Our shining stars tonight. Don't they look beautiful?" And then the comments started. Compliments poured in, but mixed among them. Questions. Observations. People recognized the dress. Someone tagged the boutique. Another tagged the designer. And then one sharp-eyed follower wrote, "Didn't I see this same dress on the boutique's Instagram? Thought it was reserved for another client?" The thread grew like wildfire. Screenshots, side-by-side comparisons. The boutique's page linked. People noticed the dates, the inconsistencies, the receipts. The internet doesn't forget, and my cousin? She froze. Her perfect smile faltered. She tried to laugh it off, waving her hand as if it was nothing. "Oh, just a mix-up," she muttered. But her eyes darted like a trapped animal. I stood beside her, quiet, watching it all unfold. I didn't need to say a word. The truth was already louder than I could ever be. The room grew tense. Conversations dropped into whispers. Phones buzzed. Notifications chimed. And slowly, people began to look at her differently. Not with admiration, but with suspicion. My cousin's cheeks flushed crimson, her polished confidence cracking like cheap glass. She excused herself to the bathroom, muttering something about needing air. But we all knew. The unraveling had begun. I just sipped my drink, calm, composed, almost invisible. Almost. Because now, for the first time, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt like the one who had turned on the lights, but that was only the first crack. What happened next would shatter everything and leave her with nowhere to hide. She didn't come out of the bathroom for nearly 15 minutes. Guests exchanged glances, pretending not to notice, but silence has a way of speaking louder than words. The hum of the party dimmed, like the whole house was holding its breath. Finally, she emerged. Her lipstick slightly smudged, her smile more like a grimace. She tried to gather herself, tossing her hair back and laughing too loudly. "Oh, you know how social media blows things out of proportion," she said. But the tremor in her voice gave her away. The problem was the comments hadn't stopped. They multiplied. Screenshots flew. Someone had even tagged the original designer, asking whether the dress was custom ordered or off the rack. The reply came fast, sharp, undeniable. That dress was commissioned and reserved. It was not meant for resale. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Phones lit up like fireworks. Every pair of eyes turned toward her. My cousin's face drained of color. She stammered excuses. "It's not what it looks like. People are just jealous. That boutique always makes mistakes." But each word only tangled her deeper. The lies slipped, faltered, collapsed. And then, like fate twisting the knife, the boutique itself posted on Instagram. A statement, polite but firm. "We regret to inform our clients of a recent breach. A piece reserved for one of our long-term patrons was purchased under deceptive circumstances. We will be rectifying this immediately." The timing was surgical, perfect. It was as though karma had scheduled its own spotlight. The whispers in the room turned sharp. Aunts clutched pearls. Cousins hid smirks behind their glasses. Friends tilted their heads, suddenly seeing through the facade. And in the middle of it all, she stood trembling in silk and sequins that no longer looked like triumph. They looked like evidence. She spun to me, desperation flickering in her eyes. "Say something," she hissed under her breath, her smile still frozen for the audience. "Back me up." But I didn't, because this wasn't my fire to put out. This was her stage, her script, her unraveling. I simply held her gaze for a moment, calm, steady, and let the silence between us roar louder than anything I could have spoken. That silence broke her. She turned on the crowd, snapping. "Why are you all making such a big deal out of a stupid dress?" Her voice cracked, echoing through the room. "You're all acting like I committed a crime." But it wasn't just about the dress anymore. It was about everything it represented. Her vanity, her deception, her hunger to steal what wasn't hers. The cracks spread and everyone saw what I had known all along. This wasn't an accident. This was who she was. The room went cold. People shifted away. Some shook their heads. Others simply left, muttering under their breath. Her kingdom, built on glitter and applause, was crumbling in real time. And me? I stood still, invisible no more. Because I didn't need to push. The world was already pulling her down. But the night wasn't finished. Not yet. Because in her desperation, she was about to make one last mistake. One that would seal her downfall forever. Her hand shook as she clutched her phone, scrolling through the flood of comments, her face paling with every swipe. I could see it. The panic. The desperation clawing at her throat. She wasn't used to losing control. She wasn't used to being exposed. Then, suddenly, she snapped. She stormed toward the center of the room, heels clicking like gunshots against the floor, her voice raised higher than it had ever been. "All of you, she shouted, her eyes darting from face to face. You think you're so perfect? You think you're better than me? This is jealousy, pure jealousy. A stunned silence fell. No one moved. No one spoke. She jabbed a finger toward one cousin. You wear knockoffs and act like they're designer. Then another. You brag about your job when everyone knows you hate it. One by one, she flung venom across the room, her words slicing through what little dignity she had left. But the more she raged, the smaller she became. Every insult sounded like a confession. Every outburst revealed the cracks in her polished mask. Finally, she turned to me. Her eyes were wild, red-rimmed, desperate. This is your fault, she spat. You've always been jealous. You've always wanted to be me. Admit it, you planned this. You turned them all against me. The room tilted toward me, waiting. For the first time, all eyes weren't on her. They were on me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't lash back. I simply spoke the truth, steady and calm. Funny, I said. How the person who steals always thinks someone else took from them. The silence afterward was heavy. A silence that said everything no one else dared to. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. She looked around, searching for support, for even one person to nod, to defend her. But there was none. The golden girl had lost her shine, and then karma twisted the knife one last time. Her phone chimed, loud, echoing. Everyone heard it. She glanced at the screen and her face drained. Someone had leaked the boutique's receipts directly into the family group chat. Her name, the date, the exact order. Clear, undeniable proof that she hadn't just bought a dress. She had lied, schemed, and deceived to get it. The gasp that followed was collective. It was the sound of a pedestal collapsing. She dropped the phone, her eyes darting wildly. That's fake, she screamed, but no one believed her anymore. The evidence was too sharp, too real. Her voice cracked and suddenly the power was gone. She wasn't the queen anymore. She wasn't untouchable. She was just a girl in a stolen dress, unraveling in front of everyone she once thought worshipped her. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt free. But even as she crumbled, I knew my story wasn't just about her fall. It was about what came after, about me stepping out of her shadow for good. And that part was just beginning. When the last guest finally left, the house was quiet. Eerily quiet. The kind of silence that hums after a storm has ripped through, leaving only broken branches and damp air behind. My cousin had locked herself in her room. No more laughter, no more smug little smirks, no more parading in silk. Just a shut door and the echo of her downfall. I sat alone on the couch, dress still clinging to me, hair slightly undone. But for the first time, I felt whole. Not because she was broken, but because I wasn't anymore. See, the truth is, revenge wasn't about destroying her. It was never really about the dress. It was about reclaiming myself, the girl who'd been silenced, overlooked, and pushed aside for years. The one who had dimmed herself so someone else could shine. That night, I didn't dim anymore. The following weeks confirmed it. The boutique blacklisted her. Her reputation in the family shifted. No longer the golden child, but the girl with the tarnished crown. Invitations she once flaunted stopped arriving. The whispers never left her side, and me, I felt lighter. I started wearing colors I used to avoid. I bought myself a new dress. Not expensive, not extravagant, but mine. I walked into rooms differently, shoulders back, chin up. Not for show, but because I finally believed I belonged there. Funny thing, when you stop living in someone else's shadow, people notice. At work, my ideas were heard more. Friends asked me for advice, not just for presents. Even family members started looking at me with fresh eyes, like they were seeing me for the first time. And my cousin, she tried to rebuild, of course. People like her always do. She posted apologies online, rebranded herself, claimed she'd been misunderstood. But the shine never quite returned. Once the truth comes out, it stains everything. Do I feel bad? Sometimes. Because no matter what she did, she's still family. But then I remember the look in her eyes when she smirked at me and said, Too bad you'll never wear it. That wasn't love. That wasn't family. That was cruelty. And cruelty always circles back. In the end, karma didn't just punish her, it freed me, and maybe that's the real revenge. Not screaming, not plotting, not even exposing, but walking away lighter, stronger, and finally stepping into a life that feels like it's mine. I don't need the dress anymore. Because the glow I found isn't stitched in fabric. It's stitched in me. So I'll leave you with this question. What would you have done if someone you trusted stole your dream? Not just the dress, but the moment you worked for. Would you have stayed silent, or would you have taken back your power? Tell me in the comments, I'm dying to know.